Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Mums on Cloud Nine podcast. This week, I'm delighted to be joined by Rebecca Daniel and Sarah Bramall, who are the co founders of the Coaching Catalyst. Today, we're going to be talking all about how to support yourself as a leader and particularly about how to coach yourself and support and make sure you're the best version of yourselves so you can again in turn support and coach those around you. So we're going to be unpacking all of this and what does that mean, and we're going to be talking about coaching supervision. So I'm going to hand over to Sarah and Rebecca to give us a rundown on how we should best support ourselves as a leader, but also what does coaching supervision mean.
Oh, thank you, Heather, for your lovely welcome. It's great to be here with you. So, I'm Sarah Bramall, co founder of the Coaching Catalysts. And together, Rebecca and I are both accredited coach supervisors. We're both accredited executive and leadership coaches, and we're both coach trainers as well.
Thanks for having us. So I'm Rebecca, and in our practice, we help leaders and we help coaches via coach supervision. So that's the core element of what we do. And what we do when we do that is that we support them in enhancing their professional effectiveness as a leader, as a coach, supporting their ethical practice and ensuring that they're practicing ethically, inclusively within their practice and ensuring that they're prioritizing their well-being. So fundamentally, we want leaders to be leading with care, but we also want them to be leading with clarity and confidence when they do that as well.
That's really important, isn't it? So with coaching supervision, just break that down for me. What does it actually, what when you say you're coaching supervisors, what would you be doing with individuals in that situation?
Yeah, so supervision is really intended to be a supportive space, and we all need that, but leaders in particular, because we all need somewhere to go to because we're always the people that other people come to for support. We're the ones who are holding space for our team, for our family, for our clients, and juggling all of the things, the drop offs, the deadlines, all of that mental load.
So, when we're supporting in this space, in a leadership and in a coaching context, first of all, supervision is protected, it's purposeful, and it's a space where you can pause, where you can reflect. And we'll talk about the emotional labor of leadership.
Mm.
It's not therapy, it's not training by any means. It's not someone there that's directive, that's telling you what to do, because often that's the misconception that supervision is someone that's there to kind of tell you what you're not doing right, and telling you how to do things in the next best possible way. It's reflective and it's developmental, and so it's a place where you go to get supported because, as Sarah has said, we're often the ones that are supporting everyone else without that space for ourselves.
Mm.
So, as you are all leaders in your own right, Heather, Lynn, and Kelly, it'd be interesting to hear like how you're resonating with some of this so far.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I kind of think as a leader, I've had coaches and mentors, so it'd be good to understand the difference between if I'm being coached by somebody versus coaching supervision. Just to sense check, what's the difference? What are the things that I need? And I certainly resonate with what you said with Sarah. Like, as leaders, you hold the load, and you're always the one showing up and having to be strong for everybody else, particularly as a CEO. But any manager can feel that, right, throughout an organization. And so I think it's really important. I find I have a group of individuals, like other peer entrepreneurs that I connect with and work with and, be able to talk things through, but they don't supervise. So I suppose my other question bouncing back, and obviously Lynn and Kelly can share their experiences before you answer this, but is supervising where you're joining a conversation which I'm having with somebody else, and you're being part of that conversation, or is it just one-on-one? So I'll bounce that back, but Kelly, over to you. What are you thinking?
I mean, I'm kind of good in a way where I can switch off after work when it comes to being a manager. Now, again, it's quite conflicting where I do get overwhelmed and I do hold a lot in, and I do think it's not healthy to not have an outlet to kind of release some of that pressure. Um, and I do have coaching once a week as well, just to get out some of those issues that I'm facing. Because again, you want to be able to please your manager, but you want to keep your team pleased as well. And sometimes it can be a bit of a balancing act. So I'm kind of interested to learn more about the actual supervision, what it means, what the depths of it is, and really how I can implement that into my life as well as share it with the rest of the listeners.
Yeah, and I suppose for me, I think to me, coaching would be about unlocking potential, not only for myself, but for others. I think it's so important when you are a leader of a team to not just manage tasks, but also to, facilitate growth. I think, from my side, I think it's so important to be coaching others whilst you're learning yourself. I mean, I say learning, it's probably not the right word. I think it's more about, having a consistent approach yourself and for your team. And I think if you can have the respect and the loyalty and and be there for other people, I think that's where you gain the rapport, and that's where your coaching can obviously go to another level, in my opinion. And I think it does go across not just during your work time, but as you say, when you go, in your evenings, in your weekends with your families, and I think everybody to a fashion does coach each other within work and outside of work for sure.
Yeah. So, what I'm hearing from what all of you are sharing is the importance for us as leaders to firstly have to have support ourselves, and that support is for both what's happening in the workplace, but also what's happening in our personal lives, but also the importance of our development, our continued personal and professional development. Because when we're supporting others to grow, it's really important that we're doing the same work for ourselves. And you've mentioned what's the difference between coaching and supervision, and that's a really great question. So with coaching, we're looking at where we are and where we want to be and what might be getting in the way of that. So coaching is always future focused, it's always goal focused. Generally in a coaching conversation, you will leave with some action and some accountability. Supervision is a little bit different because what supervision does is it, like coaching, it holds a confidential space, a space for you to develop, and a space for you to develop your thinking, to process your emotions, to think about your decisions as leaders. But it's a bit more of a reflective space and actually a bit more of a therapeutic space as well. So it's not necessarily about, I'm going to move forward. Sometimes it's just about staying where you are and having the time and space with a reflective partner who's holding a mirror up to you, not to judge you, but just to help you get perspective and clarity and confidence about where you are. And it's not about anybody sort of measuring your performance or measuring your capability. It's really about helping you reflect. A question I love to ask is, what's it like to be on the receiving end of me? To help you reflect on how you are communicating, help you manage when you've got any ethical questions or concerns, which again can come up for us as leaders. And as well, help you to reflect on how am I growing? How am I developing? So that when we're leading and when we're coaching, we can do that more intentionally and with less overwhelm because we don't feel we're having to hold everything ourselves.
Okay. So just based on what you just said, I mean, what can be often overlooked when somebody's leading and coaching at the same time? I think that's probably really important for everybody to understand.
I think there are many, many areas that can be often overlooked, but I think for the purpose of today's episode, we'll probably narrow it down to kind of maybe a couple of areas. So the first thing is that leaders who are often finding themselves coaching either in addition to their job role, so often it is in addition to their existing responsibilities, and sometimes it can be solely what they do, but often they're being pulled in an organizational sense between the organizational's goals and then their genuine desire to support people. And often that can create an internal conflict between that individual, that leader. Because at the end of the day, we all want the best for people, but we still have our KPIs to meet with, organizational KPIs, team KPIs to meet. So that's often one of the areas that I find is overlooked, is that we don't understand the level of internal conflict that is occurring within that individual. I think the next area that I'll go to within this question is the space. So often what's overlooked is the space that we need to create for an individual, for a leader to unpack that So, Sarah mentioned that we're juggling all the things. So we could be at midday working with a colleague on their performance review, and at 2 p.m. we could be working with another colleague on something that they're struggling with, and then at 8 p.m. we're doing the bedtime routine and the bath time routine, and so where is the space and the time for us to unpack that, and who do we go to hold that space for us? Not a family member or a friend who can have their own preconceived ideas and judgments, but someone who is purely there for you without any intention but to support you in supporting you in your leadership. So I think they're two of the main areas that get overlooked, but I think the last one that gets overlooked is the emotional load and the blurred boundaries, and I think that intersects with all of that, because that often builds up quietly. You don't actually notice it until it's too late. And that's what I say. Like, sometimes when you're feeling overwhelmed and you're going to potentially burn out, you don't actually really feel it until you've got to the point where, oh my goodness, then you really, really do feel it. And so supervision allows leaders to have that space to really explore that complexity. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think we're really, really passionate about it, because I think we can see what happens as a result when people don't have that.
And we obviously have met you in person, and we know how passionate you are about this. And I think, you mentioned about the blurred lines, and I think that will so resonate with a lot of people for sure.
It doesn't get talked about enough, doesn't it? I mean,
No.
coaching supervision and this, I think you, Sarah, you explained the difference really well, is, just weathering that emotional roller coaster of work. And you say you're giving yourself, it's not necessarily about you and where you need to go and your career direction with coaching, but just having somebody to sound everybody out to and think about how to handle situations at work and differences. Like, yeah, why isn't this talked about more and thought about? So you're doing something really special, and it certainly needs to be broadcasted more, because I think a lot of leaders probably need
Definitely.
your organisation in their life, right? It's really important because it helps us be the best leader.
I mean, I know for me as an example, I will have this kind of cycle where I will get overwhelmed and overwhelmed and overwhelmed, and every 4 months I'll have a bit of a breakdown by one thing someone says, start crying and getting the next. It's basically like me pouring out all that trauma, and then I'll start again. Every 4 months, that something else happens. So it's kind of
I'm
like,
going to pay for you to have supervision. This
oh my gosh, I
Can I
know.
have
I get to a breaking point. Oh my gosh, I think that's the way that I get through, because again, I don't really talk about it a lot. But it's that building up situation. So in regards to like the emotional challenges, what do you think happens to leaders when they haven't got really a space to really, apart from me bursting into tears, a space to kind of, get that outlet out?
Yeah, well, exactly that. And, we are all leaders and the people we lead, we're all emotional beings, aren't we? We are not robots. And I think as women, we're quite good at recognizing the mental load that we carry, as in the to-do list, the deadlines, etc. But we don't talk enough about emotional load. And that emotional load, if we don't have somewhere to process it and to deal with it, it gets really heavy over time, because we're carrying all of those conversations that we've had and we haven't had time to process. We're carrying other people's stuff, their struggles. Often as leaders, we're carrying self-doubt as well, that we might creep in maybe after we've made a difficult decision, and it all impacts on us, our well-being. We get tired, we might get a bit cranky or a bit defensive. We might, like you, Kelly, just like every now and again, like have a good cry. Sometimes it impacts on our confidence. So how do we deal with all of that? Well, supervision is, I'd say, a more therapeutic space than the coaching space. It really does provide the opportunity to release that load, to let go of it, to notice what's coming up, and to really get reconnected with what's important for us and the things that we're good at as well. And I find that, like you guys, our business life is really full, really, really busy, like you as well. My family, my personal life is really busy, and I don't get much time or space to process. And I'm not naturally a reflector either. I'm always kind of on to the next thing. So when I go to supervision, it is like almost like a kind of dump of like, this is what's real and present for me. And my lovely supervisor is amazing at making making a sense of all of the tangle of mess that I kind of put on the metaphorical table and going, okay, Sarah, here it all is, and where are we going to start? And I find that space absolutely invaluable.
I can see that's important because, like you say, you kind of think, well, after a day going through stuff, you've had a tough day, you're like, then the kids come home and then they can tap you up, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to lose it. So, if you can get rid of this stuff, as I say, I've once written things down before, and it's the same sort of thing, talking it through, getting it out of your body, you can download, and that will prevent you perhaps being triggered or arguing or shouting at your kids. And how, it's interesting if we don't tackle some of this stuff, how it can then present in other areas of your life, because you've still got it. I think, Rebecca, you talked about this when we had the summit, where you said, oh, I'll end up having an argument with my partner or something. And I know it's nothing to do with that. It's all this stuff that I'm holding. So yeah, I can see why that's really important to let go of. What have been some of the successful outcomes you've seen, Sarah, from this transformation of people and supervision? Like, what are we always feel like proud parents at Supermum seeing the transformation changes. What are some of your stories?
I'm going to bat this one over to Rebecca because she's got some good stuff to share here.
Oh, goodness. I'm actually going to just hop on something that you said, Sarah, because you were going to say mess, and I'm going to now echo what you said earlier because it is messy. It really, really is. Like, supervision is and can be messy, and that's just the best part of it, though, isn't it, Sarah? Like, we don't have to come to it with like a neatly constructed idea or concept that we want to get from the session. It can be really, really messy, but I think from that mess, there's so much goodness and richness that comes from it. So one of the outcomes I would say is that people have come to supervision in all of the mess and either untangled that or got clarity on that in order to support them in resourcing themselves first and foremost, and then how that impacts into their leadership approach and how that ripple effect that it has across the team. Because once we can identify it and help us to resource ourselves, we're better equipped to transfer that knowledge and that experience and those tools to the people in our team. So bring the messiness. When we see it in our diary that we've got supervision, we're like literally like this on the table with our supervisor. But I think some of the other more tangible outcomes that we've seen are that leaders are knowing first and foremost that they're not on their own. And so that feeling of support and connectedness reduces that loneliness that can occur in leadership. Often that there is an idea that we kind of have to be the strong ones that are holding it all together. And so actually, as Sarah said, like, we are all human. Like, we do all cry and scream and shout and tumble over sometimes. So the first thing is the connectedness. And I would say the next one for me is that they're more equipped to handle their own boundaries and manage their own boundaries without absorbing things that aren't theirs to carry. I don't know about you, but I'm sure that you all three here will resonate that we can feel sometimes other people's like stuff, struggles, what's going on, and that makes us human, but sometimes they're not ours to carry, and we absorb that just naturally for our humanness. So one of the areas there that we've seen from supervision is that people can then release that or know how to resource themselves so that they're not carrying that weight. So it's that permission for them to pause and to breathe. I don't know, Sarah, if you've got anything to add to that.
No, I think you've done a really great job there. Thank you.
And I think, we talk a lot about this, don't we? And unpacking, unraveling. I mean, it's almost like, if you put a pile of washing on the floor and then just fold it up and put it neatly away, one thing at a time. And I think, if you've got somebody to talk these things through, that's where it is absolutely so important. But why do you believe that supervision is essential for organisations and want to create a safe and supportive coaching culture? That's again something that I'm sure is so important for everyone to hear.
Yeah, Lynn, thank you. Because as we've said, when we're leading, and when we're coaching, we're not robots, we're human
Yeah.
beings. And that lead
100%.
yeah, right, very much so. And that leading and that coaching, it doesn't happen in isolation either. When we're within an organization, we're right in the thick of real life pressure, of all of the, change, complexity, all of that that comes with being involved in an organization. And if we want a safe coaching culture, we have to support the people who are doing the coaching. So whether they're kind of coaching full time in their role, or if they're leaders who are having coaching style conversations in the corridor, it doesn't matter. If we want those conversations to be safe and to be effective, we have to be looking after the people who are offering that coaching. And so what supervision does is it creates that container, that ethical container that protects both the person doing the coaching and the coachee on the receiving end of the coaching, so that the person doing the coaching has that space, as we've said, to reflect, also to be challenged. And I do want to highlight that, because we've very much emphasized supervision as this lovely kind of cozy container of support, and it is that. But it also comes with challenge. How can we do better? How can we do differently? What might a different approach be? So the challenge is a really important part of supervision as well. And care, feeling that, again, that we're not robots, that we are caring for ourselves, we're caring for the people that we work with, and we're not just paying lip service to that. We're, really being proactive in demonstrating that.
I think that's so important. Like you say, all of that, everything you've said, both of you. I mean, I'm sure it's great for everybody to hear.
Just before we get into the kind of like the process of how people contact you, how they reach out to you, I was just curious to maybe give you a hypothetical situation and just to see. I know it's a bit off the cuff, but just to see kind of like what would happen. So this is nothing related to me, completely hypothetical. But what if I came to you and said to you, my boss is always digging me out. I'm really stressed. I'm overwhelmed. I've got projects, nothing to do with me. Projects coming out of my eyeballs, and my family life is hectic, and I need support. What would you suggest, or what would you do with this person if they're overwhelmed in everything in life?
Yeah, do you know what? I'm really glad that you asked that question, because often we know that we're overwhelmed, but we don't know what we want instead, and we don't know where to start. And so, again, just having that space, first of all, just to release all of that, to let all of that out, is valuable in itself. And then again, we've said that supervision and coaching are different, and they are, but what is similar is that we would go, okay, and where are we going to start? And just like in coaching, we don't try and deal with all of it at once. We just choose one little piece that would start to make a difference. And we look at our resources and we think, okay, what's in my control here? And what am I going to do with that? And what support might I need? And so it would be that sort of conversation. But I would say the difference between that and a coaching conversation is a coaching conversation goes very quickly to, okay, what do you want instead? And how are you going to get there? Whereas the supervision conversation allows a bit more time and space to just go, okay, let's just unravel all of this. Let's take time to express all of this emotion and feeling and the impact it's having on me, on the people around me, on the wider system. And then what are we going to do about this?
Of course. How do people come and find you?
So I'm going to throw a curveball back to you, though, Kelly.
Oh, I love this.
Sorry.
Not getting away that easy.
I'm excited.
There's
Wow.
two rebels here today, Kelly. You
Look,
are
I love this. Go for it.
out of everything that we've said. Where do you think supervision would have helped you the most in your leadership journey?
Very interesting. I'm interested.
Spicy lady. Oh, you're really giving it that to me.
Bit spicy.
A bit spicy. No, I think for me, I think really I'm always on the go. So my brain goes 100 miles an hour. And sometimes if I'm doing something in the present, my brain's moving away from me and doing things that I haven't even started yet. So I think it's about just having a safe space to really get all that down, kind of piece it by piece, like separate each thing and what needs to go where, and just really being able to talk about that and see how I can kind of slow my brain down while achieving different things, I think. So I think it'll be interesting to see how I could how you would be able to break down the things in my mind that are so hectic and teach me how to maybe slow down my pace a bit and figure things out one at a time. So it'd be interesting to see if that's something that would work.
That is awesome. Yeah, I think Sarah and I resonate with that. Sarah got told by her supervisor that she's a go, 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 and when is she going to slow, slow, slow? We are already in 2026 in our minds right
100%.
now.
Hmm.
So yeah, I resonate with that. And I think for me, the response to that is where it's helped me is
Mm.
that time in my diary is where I am 100% doing nothing else but for me. And it's that probably one moment in my calendar where I'm slow.
Mm.
And that's the accountability that it gives me. Like the accountability that is in my diary to slow down and to take that time for myself. And I cherish that. And then after the hour, I'm gone. I'm back in 2026, 2027 or 2028, the next year,
Well, no,
whenever
I
you
don't
listen
have
to
that.
that.
I don't have that. My diary is like back to back with maybe a tiny bathroom break in between, but it's like bam, 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 bam.
Yeah. There you go, Heather. What about you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, just reflect on Kelly. I mean, Kelly's like got all these ideas, and he's got 200 things on a task list all the time. So it's like, it's great. You're so motivated. But yeah, it's like that reflection, isn't it? Of like, I'm like that. I mean, I have about 10 to-do lists, and then I get confused and sort of forget and start writing another to-do list. But I think going back to supervision and where it helped, where I feel that this has a real value for me is I think just say that download of once a week reflecting, actually what's gone well, what needs to be done differently, how am I feeling? I think it's that, that opportunity. And that's why I'm quite interested in this because it's never really coaching supervision and the way that you described it. It's never really been something that I've been aware of as something that you could have that's different to I have a coach, but that's about I say, where am I going? What's next? What's worked, what's what from a business point of view, but not, as working with you as an emotional person and kind of that. Because sometimes you don't want to bring that to the coaching meetings. It's kind of, I mean, I do, but it's different. I completely get where this is different. So I think it's of real value. And I think it, it definitely helps, deal with all those emotional challenges. Because as we all know as managers, we're dealing with people and all their stuff as well. And, you're balancing that with your own things. And I think you have to work really well as a team. And I think we need that peer support to support us on that journey. And we don't want to put that baggage on our partner or our friend because we never go into enough detail for them to really form any kind of opinion anyway, right? It's not like we'd want to download all their stuff at the end of the day. And I was reflective of that when my partner comes home. I'm like, oh, I'm just downloading all this stuff on them about things. And it's like, you don't want to do that on them because that's not fun. So I think it's important that we have that person that we pay to download the stuff too. What's the typical pricing actually if people were going to do this? Obviously, employers might pay for it or they might pay themselves. What's the typical price? I think Rebecca or Sarah, if you want to answer that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Would do you want to take it, Sarah, or do you want me to go?
You go.
I would say there is no typical price, and I'm,
Okay.
I'm seeing Sarah nodding
Yeah.
here. And the reason why I say that is because coaching is still in the UK relatively in its newness in comparison to elsewhere in the world, in comparison to America. So we're still kind of establishing what the typical price for coaching would be. And I would say that supervision is still more in its infancy, where people are trying to figure out kind of where that lays in terms of its importance to coaching or not. So for us at the moment, we've priced it a little bit lower than coaching, but actually in my mind, it should be higher than the coaching investment. So our organizational rate is 2,999, and that's for an annual investment for an internal or an organizational coach to have access to monthly supervision, but not just monthly supervision, like also learning and development. So we really do believe that if you're coaching, like how are you increasing your knowledge of coaching skills, coaching tools? And then we create a community of coaches around that because of that loneliness that it can create. So that is our package at the moment, and who knows where that will be in a few years. But it's opportunities like this of raising awareness of supervision and ensuring that we can create a real need for it and an essential need for it, because it is an essential, it's not a nice to have in all organizations and in all coaching practices. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. And you said about we talked about leaders and leaders who are coaches. can it be a leader who doesn't have any formal coaching qualifications that join you as well? Or do they need to be a qualified coach or trained as a coach as well as a leader to kind of be part of what you do?
Again, really great question, Heather. Thank you. What we're finding is that more and more organizations are bringing their coaching capacity internally because it makes more sense financially. So we're seeing more and more leaders who've had some level of coaching experience. So we're not, with our coaches, we're very clear that our coaches must be qualified and sort of in supervision and lots following the accreditation route. But for our leaders as coaches, the education that they will have received around coaching will likely be dependent on the organisation. And we would prefer that leaders who are coaching are in supervision regardless of their level of qualification, because when you're having those coaching conversations, as we've said, like, it's so important that you are practicing with integrity, safely, ethically. So we would much prefer that people were in support and supervision regardless of where they're at in terms of their coaching development, because coaching developments, again, it's a conversation we can have in the supervision space, like, how am I going to develop my coaching skills? That's a conversation we can have. But yeah, 100% great question, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I
So
don't know if you wanted to pick on Lynn because she hasn't gone there.
I was waiting for that.
What a great supportive leader you have there, Lynn. Over to you, Lynn.
Pick on me then. Go
Where
on, why
do you
don't
think-
you?
Everybody said have their turn.
Where do you think, Lynn, it would have been helpful for you to have supervision in your leadership?
Great question for me. Absolutely. I mean, this, as you've all said, it is essential, I think. For me, 100%, I haven't learnt this. I'm going on holiday, which I'm very excited about with my family, but I'm already planning for when I get back, what I'm doing when I get back. So, you know, I think, like you say, being in 2026, I'm way ahead of the game like that. I mean, I think that's how you always work, isn't it? When you think about work as opposed to home life, you do spend your time, planning things that are way in the future. 2026, as you say. So I think as I haven't learned the downtime bit, and that I think that would be so beneficial. I think I'm very good at, enjoying my family time when I get there, but it's just all about, I think, not having the clear structure where you block out the time, and I think that's something that I definitely need to learn. So I think this is absolutely essential for everyone, for sure.
Amazing. Oh, job is done, Sarah. We have converted the mums on cloud.
You converted us when we met you. You're right.
of course, of
Oh, I
course.
know.
It's the personalities.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
talking to you. Could listen to you all day. You were brilliant at the summit, and I think that what you do and what you offer should absolutely be out there. And do you want to just share a little bit about where people can find you and which social media platforms?
Of course, yeah. So if you're part of a leadership role and this conversation is resonating, we host bi-monthly virtual roundtables. We're looking to do them in person, but at the moment they're virtual, and they're for leaders who coach, and that's completely complimentary at the moment. So definitely get in there, and hopefully in the show notes we can put a link in there for you to do that. And that's just free, and it's an informal space for you to connect and reflect and just explore the realities of leading and coaching. And we're over on LinkedIn as our main platform and Instagram. But if you prefer a more personal conversation, then we'd love to book a call with you. And we're always happy to explore what that might look like for you and or your organisation.
Thank you. Well, thank you for everything that you do. It's awesome to know about this, and I think more people need to. And we'll definitely look into it for ourselves as well. So thank you so much, Sarah and Rebecca, for joining us today. Check out the show notes, as Rebecca mentioned. There will be more information. Make sure you follow them on LinkedIn and Instagram. And we look forward to seeing you all soon. And thank you, Kelly and Lynn, for hosting with me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.